Good evening. Welcome to the Board of Mayor and Alderman meeting for the City of Hendersonville. It's September 27, 2022. It is approximately 7 p.m. We're going to start our meeting as we typically do, and that's with a prayer and a pledge. And I've asked Alderman Robertson to say a prayer for us tonight, and then I'll lead us in the pledge. Alderman Robertson.
Yes, I would like to mention the following individuals that we need to remember in prayer. Gene Hughes, Tennessee First Lady Marie Lee, and the Crow family in the loss of their 21-year-old son. So let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we come to you tonight with praise in our heart. We thank you for the many blessings that you have given to us individually and to this city as a whole. We honor you, dear Lord, with our words and our actions. Help us to be a light in the community, to sow peace, unity, and vision for the future. Dear Lord, we pray for those in the state of Florida that are about to experience a hurricane, and those others that are sick and ill in our community. We pray that your touch will be upon them and give them healing. And dear Lord, as the winds blow and the storms rage, as the sea roars and the enemy attacks our families, as sickness and plagues ravage the people and the foundations of the earth are shaken. But we are not without hope, for you, even in these times, we see your presence in the echoes of mercy and the whispers of love. For truly, dear Lord, you are our refuge and strength, a very present help in the time of trouble. Now be with us tonight as we deliberate the public business. Give us wisdom and understanding and discernment. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Alderman Robertson. Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all. I'm going to entertain a motion to accept the agenda. I have a motion from Alderman Waters and a second from Alderman Collins. Alderman Robertson.
I would like to add ordinance 2022-23. I'm sorry, let me repeat it. Ordinance 2022-23. This is an ordinance appropriating additional funds for the city's traffic light synchronization project. So I would like to waive the ordinance, the 2-week ordinance, and put this on the agenda because I don't want there to be any delay in moving forward with this project, the important project.
We've got a motion. We have a second from Alderman Waters. Any discussion on that item? I believe that Robert has already handed it out to all of y'all. It's ordinance 2022-23. Any discussion on this? All those in favor of adding this item to the agenda, please press the green button. Those opposed, press the red one. That passes 12-0. Alderman Cunningham.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to add ordinance 2022-24, an ordinance appropriating funds for the Sanders Ferry Walking Trail. This was recommended unanimously at the Finance Committee meeting tonight. I don't know what, I guess, number 3?
So, so maybe we do ordinance 22-23 is item 3, and ordinance 22-24 is item 4.
Okay, as
That's
item 4.
Okay. So we have a motion.
Do we have a
Second. I have a second from Alderman Waters. Any discussion on that item? Alderman Cunningham, would you mind adding to that to have an executive session and a consideration of a settlement proposal after the consent agenda?
Yes, we'll do that after the consent. Put the executive session under the, as item 5?
Yeah, I guess, well, I guess it'll be 7.5.
7.5, okay.
Okay,
7.5.
okay. And,
As
I,
a executive session.
okay. And then we'll have I also need another item there, consideration of settlement proposal. Otherwise, when we come back,
And-
we can't actually
Yeah,
take
in
it.
consideration of the settlement proposal.
Thank you. Alderman
you,
Waters,
Mayor.
are you okay with changing your, with seconding this change? Okay, okay. Any discussion on that? Okay, so what we're doing is we're gonna add, ordinance 2022-24. That's gonna be item 4 under ordinance and resolutions. We're also gonna add executive session and, consideration of a settlement proposal as item 7.5. Any discussion? All those in favor, please press your green button. Those opposed, press the red one. That passes unanimously. Since we do have one member missing, I'm going to ask Robert to call the roll.
Brown. Here. Collins.
Here.
Cunningham.
Here.
Dixon.
Here.
Edwards. Here. Hayes. Peterson. Here. Petrelli.
Here.
Phillips.
Here.
Roberson.
Here.
Skidmore. Here. Waters. Here. And Clary.
Here. What's 2/3 of 12, John?
8.
Thank you. We have no presentations, no public meeting, no public hearings. I'm going to entertain a motion that we approve the minutes of our September 13th, 2022 meeting. I have a motion from Alderman Edwards and a second from, we have a motion from Alderman Waters, a second from Alderman Edwards. Any discussion on on the minutes that were provided to you in the packet? All those in favor of approving those minutes, please press the green button. Those opposed, press the red one. We're missing somebody. Okay, so we have 3 people abstaining. That's Alderman Dixon, Alderman Peterson, and Alderman Petrelli. And that passes with 9 yes votes and 0 against. Thank y'all. Citizen comments, we have nobody signed up for citizen comments. We have no consent agenda. Now, under Roman numeral 7.5, we have an executive session. I don't think this is going to take us more than 5 or 10 minutes. When we come back, we have another item that's consideration of a settlement proposal that deals with the conversation we're about to have. But y'all can't come with us, just the 13 of us and our city attorney.
quickest
Okay,
we've ever done.
we're back on, y'all. A couple weeks ago, we had an executive session. I said it would last about 10 minutes. It lasted 40. This one I said would last 5, and it lasted about a minute and a half. So we're happy to be back. Next, we have an item on our agenda, consideration of a settlement proposal. Alderman Collins.
I move that we accept the settlement proposal as discussed in executive session with our city attorney.
We have a second from Alderman Cunningham. Any discussion on that? All those in favor, please signify by pressing the green button. Those opposed, press the red one. That passes unanimously. Thank you. Now we're on to ordinance and resolutions. You good? Okay. We have first reading of ordinance 2022-22. This is an ordinance regarding the office of city attorney. Alderman Skidmore.
Approve.
We have a motion from Alderman Skidmore and a second from Alderman Cunningham. Alderman Waters.
Thank you, Mayor. As one of the sponsors on this ordinance, let me say that this administration has now reached a milestone. I do mean a milestone. Just think, in 2.5 months, this board passed term limits. No one thought it would ever happen. Now here we are at the doorstep, amending the ordinance we have had since 1991, 31 years, right? This ordinance was approved in general committee without any discussion because the committee felt, and I agree too, that this amendment had a lot of discussion to be held tonight. So we just passed it to Boma with our approval. And saying that, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to go ahead and make an amendment, if I may.
Go ahead.
Under section 1-302 under qualifications,
Okay.
number 3, I move to amend this and add it back to 2022-22 and place it under item number 5 under section 2 of the ordinance. That's my amendment, and I so move. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay. I appreciate that. Help me explain a little bit more what we're doing again. So take item 3.
On this qualifications,
Okay.
1-302, number 3,
Okay.
where it goes into felony charges and so forth and so on.
Okay.
I move that we put that in the ordinance tonight.
Okay. So right now, it would be included in our ordinance tonight.
Pardon?
If we leave it just the way it is, that will, all of this will be included in our ordinance
It
tonight.
will be?
It will be.
Okay.
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 Appreciate that. Anything else you want to suggest?
No, if it's gonna be in there anyway, I'm for it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Appreciate that, Alderman Waters. Alderman Peterson.
Yes, thank you.
I turned you off a minute ago. I apologize
Yeah,
for that.
I appreciate that. I would like to add under qualifications, section 1-301, that the attorney only represent Hendersonville in Sumner County.
So are you meaning they shouldn't represent another government in Sumner County?
Yeah, I believe that
Okay.
might be, down the road could be seen as a conflict.
Okay.
I'm just trying to think of worst case scenario. So I would just like to add a qualification that they only represent the city of Hendersonville in Sumner County.
Okay. But you also don't want them representing the county.
No.
Okay. Do you feel comfortable saying governments inside Sumner? They should not represent any other governments inside Sumner County?
I wonder if Mr. Bradley can help me
That
with
might be
the
a better
language.
choice.
Governmental entities, what you're looking for.
Okay.
Okay.
School board,
Uh,
county, anything you want, that's
Yeah,
what you're looking for.
That's a good
Okay.
point.
okay. Alderman Dixon, did you second that?
I second.
Okay. I cut you off a little bit there, Alderman Peterson. Any other discussion, or you want me to come back to you, or what do you want?
No, sir, thank you.
Okay, okay. Alderman Brown, you had your button pressed a few minutes ago, but since then you've turned it off, or did I do that? Okay. Okay. Okay, we'll go to Alderman Dixon.
I have questions.
Okay.
For, I'm assuming Alderman Skidmore and Alderman Cunningham.
Okay.
wrote
Is it
this.
going to be on this motion?
Not on this motion.
I'll come back to you then,
Okay.
okay? Alderman Edwards, you pressed the button after the motion was made, so I suspect it's about this motion.
It is about the proposed amendment.
Go ahead.
Should we limit it to municipalities? Because our city attorney brought out a good point. What if, long way down the road, if we do have another part-time city attorney, they want to represent a school board of, I don't know, should we limit it to municipalities, or do we want to say any government entities?
I think I'm good with just municipalities for simplicity.
And you don't want to limit that to Sumner County, do you? Just say any municipalities?
Any municipalities within the county.
Yeah, I could support that.
Okay, so we're changing that.
Thank you.
John, help us out. Define municipality as Tennessee sees it.
Cities, I think there's 6 of them in Sumner County. I've represented 3 of them for several years, so I assume that's the reason for this. I would just like to point out, I haven't seen any conflict in the time that I've been here, but that's fine. Put it in there. That's certainly okay to do that. If I were doing it, I'd probably limit it to school board in Sumner County also. Because you're far more likely to have a conflict with Sumner County than you are with Westmoreland.
John, does municipality include utility districts?
Not as he means it. We're talking about cities. Utility districts for some statutes are called municipalities, but you're talking about just cities, right? And we could name them if you want to: Portland, Westmoreland, Gallatin, White House. Who am I leaving out?
We've got Mitchellville.
Mitchellville, yeah, Mitchellville and Goodlettsville. I think that's got all of them in Gallatin. But just say cities. We all know what the word cities means. Don't use municipalities, use cities.
Okay.
So Alderman Edwards, what's your suggestion, Alderman Peterson? How do you feel about it? Alderman Edwards?
I'll defer to Alderman Peterson. It's his motion to amend.
Alderman Peterson, cities, municipalities, government entities?
I think we can just leave it at cities
Okay,
within Sumner County.
okay. Okay, Alderman Dixon, are you okay with that? You made the second?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Alderman Edwards, anything else? Okay, thank you. Alderman Cunningham, on the motion here or on the main motion? Go ahead.
Okay, so this limits the city attorney not to represent any kind of city within Sumner County. What about outside of Sumner County, like in Davidson County, Trousdale County, et cetera? Robertson County, would they still be able to represent a municipality within other counties within Tennessee?
The way it reads right now, yes.
Okay. I'd like to limit it just to Hendersonville. But, okay, thank you, Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Alderman Cunningham. Alderman Collins?
I can think of instances where our interest and say Westmoreland, because that came up, there would be a compounding of interest, but I can't think of examples of conflicting interest. So I'm hoping somebody can just help make this more practical for me. And then I also wonder, this not being my field at all, how this is getting a lawyer that represents a municipality is a specialty form of law, and how many practitioners are there locally? Will this make it more difficult to find somebody? I don't know. So we have 2 attorneys up here. I would like to hear your opinions on that
Who wants to go
from
first?
both of you, actually.
Yeah, it would limit. There's not many here that specialize in that. It'd be hard to find somebody. So I think you do bring out a good point that may limit it even more if we have a part-time, if we hire a part-time, city attorney, if they're not even in the county, if they represent other municipalities. But yeah, to answer your question, yeah, it's hard to find specialties within this county, especially that represent, that know a lot about municipal law.
And can you think of examples of conflicting interests with Westmoreland or Gallatin or?
Not if there's been any, probably Mr. Bradley can better speak to that. I can't think off the top of my head any kind of,
Or what
it's not
could
like
come up?
Hendersonville's gonna be suing
What could
Westmoreland.
possibly come up that would be a conflict?
I'm not aware, if you're asking me, I'm not aware of anything that's out there that would be likely a conflict. But you've got to also remember that attorneys have rules of ethics that they have to deal with. And if a conflict came up, the attorney would have to back out. If there were a conflict between Hendersonville and Westmoreland, for example, and you represented both cities, you might not be able to represent either city. But I've been the city attorney for Westmoreland for 18 years and for this city for over 35 years and Portland for about 5 years. And I've never seen a conflict. I've seen instead that it's helped all the cities. Because, for example, with the E911 committee, where all these three cities were involved, it gave every city a little bit more information because I was familiar with all three cities. And the only conflict I see would be with Sumner County, because the county and the city often have different interests. But the Sumner County position, at least up to this point, has been a full-time position. And if Hendersonville's position becomes a full-time position, it eliminates this anyway, because if it's full-time, you wouldn't be representing any of these other cities. So I haven't seen a conflict, is
Can you
all I
see
would
us
say.
having a conflict with the school board? Is there a potential
We've
for
had
that?
issues with the school board very recently with respect to easements and various things that come up that we've had to work out with the Public Works Department with some of the projects we're building and roads we're building and turn lanes. And I think the mayor, Clary, would certainly be able to speak to several potential conflicts we've had with the school board over the last few years, because they own property in Hendersonville that often involves us.
And can you speak to the applicant pool or how this might impact the applicant pool?
Well, since I represent three of the cities in Sumner County, and I would not be affected by this, it probably wouldn't have a great deal of impact. The city attorney for White House potentially could be impacted because that person does represent the exact same form of government as Hendersonville has. So that would disqualify that person in White House. Gallatin has a full-time city attorney, so it's not an issue there. And Mitchellville has no city attorney. Goodlet's full city attorney might be interested in applying for this job just based on the fact that I've talked to him. And, but this would disqualify him from being able to apply. And, so that's, I mean, I could go city by city, but Mitchellville doesn't have a city attorney. So that's, it hasn't been a problem for 35, almost 36 years is all I can say. And if it becomes a problem, you have to deal with it when it becomes a problem.
And Mayor Clary, I just want to clarify with you that we are still, based on our workshop, I think we're still going to have an interim and then make adjustments again at that time. I think I think for me, I would be willing to consider the amendment again in the future, but right now I am not prepared to support it. But I am keeping an open mind in the future, especially after we've had an interim to come and make recommendations to us. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Collins. Alderman Robertson.
Yes, Mr. Bradley, I have a scenario that I would like to discuss with you in exploring the possibility of a conflict of interest. Have you, in your official role with this city, have you done any lobbying at the legislature on behalf of the city?
This city?
With the with the General
Not with any
Assembly?
city, no. I mean, cities in general, I know when the annexation laws came up, I was there. At that time, I was only the city attorney for Hendersonville, but I know we did speak to our legislative delegation about changes we thought needed to be made in the annexation laws. But it would be the same interest that all cities would have. It was not in behalf of any particular city. I remember Mayor Thompson and I spent a lot of time with Senator Graves talking about the annexation legislation and trying to have some influence on that to help cities have a better shot at being able to annex. Of course, that was a long time ago. It's all changed since then, and now, as you know, we're very limited in annexation. But have I ever lobbied the legislature for any particular city, for any particular thing? No.
So would it be possible, because in a lot of legislation, state legislation, there are based on population. So would it be, could a scenario arise where a smaller populated city would be opposed to legislation that we would want for a larger metropolitan city?
Yeah,
And
and-
in that situation, because I think someone has said in discussions about the city attorney that we may want them to help lobby at the General Assembly from time to time. So is that a possibility that would present a conflict of interest?
The only time I would see that as a conflict would be perhaps if there was something with Goodlettsville. We've been in litigation with Goodlettsville in the past, and Goodlettsville is, you know, next door to us, unlike Westmoreland. Goodlettsville joins our border, and I see a potential there. Although Goodlettsville has a General Act charter, and we have the Mayor Automatic charter, so any change that was made to our charter wouldn't affect them. Any change to their charter wouldn't affect us. So even on that scenario, it wouldn't apply. Portland and Westmoreland and Gallatin, for example, all have private act charters. They all have their own charters, so it wouldn't be any conflict with them.
Okay.
And, you know, and I hope that you want an attorney that's going to be practicing law far more than lobbying. That's a different sort of
yes.
skill.
I
That's a
agree.
different set of skills, and you
I
don't need a
agree.
lobbyist, you need a lawyer.
I agree. I agree. Okay, thank you, Mayor.
Alderman Robertson, thank you. Alderman Edwards.
Yeah, very quickly, kind of going off what Alderman Robertson was saying. Mr. Bradley, have you ever been involved in a scenario, or do you see one when Hendersonville is trying to compete? You're helping Hendersonville trying to get some funds from the county over Westmoreland or any other cities?
It's never happened. Once again, that gets into lobbying. That's what the elected officials do, not
Right.
the lawyers typically.
Or drafting any kind of contracts that might be considered representing what is our school board? Do we have a part-time or full-time attorney for our school board?
They have a firm out of Nashville that represents them. I don't think they even typically attend the meetings. They just are there when they need them.
I wonder if we should include school board in there because of the conflicts that may arise.
We've had several situations, I mean, I could list them if we needed to, where we had issues with the school board about things they wanted us to do or that we wanted them to do, and the parties had different interest.
Within the past couple weeks.
Within the past couple of weeks, twice within the past 2 months. Once having to do with utilities at the fire hall, the new fire hall, because of an issue about easements with the Sumner County Board of Education. So you're more likely to have a conflict with the school board or the county than with another city. I mean,
Okay.
cities are just kind of a different animal.
Right.
You know.
Well, I can see where we want to maybe have an attorney that their full allegiance is for the city of Hendersonville. So I wonder if Alderman Peterson, you would consider prohibiting any city attorney from representing any cities in Sumner County, as well as the Sumner County School Board. Is that something you would consider?
Yeah, I would like to include, I think, would that fall under government entities?
It gets you back to Sumner County governmental entities, yes.
That includes
Where we started.
all municipalities and cities. I can go for that.
Okay, so shall not represent any other governmental entities inside Sumner County. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Alderman Edwards, anything else? Alderman Peterson, anything else
Um,
on this motion?
no, I'm just, has anyone applied for this job yet?
We've got multiple statements of interest. That might be a bio, that might be a resume, and we're going to keep it open for about 12 more days. So when we come back here in 2 weeks, I'll be able to tell you exactly what we have. What's
Okay,
happening.
so you've had multiple people apply?
Yep.
Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. More for me than anybody else. Robert, will you read what the motion is?
Sure. add language under section, 1-301, qualifications and election. City attorney shall not represent any other governmental entities inside Sumner County.
Does that seem, okay. Who is my second? Alderman Dixon? Is that your understanding? Okay. All those in favor, please press the green button. Those opposed, press the red one. Oh, sorry, Jason, I said that way too fast. There we go, now we're ready. Missing somebody? That passes 11-1. The one person voting no is Alderman Brown. Now we're back on the main motion as it's been amended. Anybody want to discuss the main motion? Alderman Dixon.
Some of my questions have already been answered, but so the plan is that this is for the interim attorney and that we will amend this later?
So the interim attorney, if I'm speaking for John here, he said a couple weeks ago that what we have now wouldn't necessarily apply to the interim. We have, and obviously we haven't passed this, so this wouldn't apply either. And I think you've said in the past, John, that we can vote to appoint somebody that doesn't always have the qualifications that we expect. So I shouldn't have done that. I should just let.
Well, on an interim basis, I think you could, but if this passes, you wouldn't have to do it. If you pass this, then any interim that you hire, as long as they met these qualifications, would be okay. And I think that's sounder for the city. I think it's better to not put someone as an interim that doesn't meet the qualifications. That's just, because that goes back to something Dr. Robertson said at the last meeting or 2 meetings ago. He would like to not have this disqualify the interim. And if you don't have all these qualifications apply to the interim, and you hire an interim that doesn't meet them, then that would disqualify.
Right.
And you might love the person, and 6 months later you think, well, we got to amend the ordinance again to keep them on. So I think that answers your question.
Yes. I think this is my final question. This will be a contract position, right? Will we hold a contract with this role?
There's nothing in here that makes it that way. It's up to this board to decide. And if you decided to go full-time, obviously it would not be a contract position.
Right.
So it sort of depends on how you want to make it at the time. There's nothing in this that makes it full-time, part-time, 1099, contractor or W-2 employee. This is left it open for the interim to serve, and then you decide what you want to do. I think that's sort of the idea, is to
That was
get a
why
better
I
idea.
asked the question first,
Yes,
because
ma'am.
I will say that depending on who we hire as the interim, or I would want to amend this to ensure that we have a contract employee.
You don't mean have a contract with them, you just mean have them not treated as a city employee.
Right.
Okay, I think that's clear.
Okay. Alderman Dixon, thank you. Alderman Waters.
Mayor, as I'm looking at ordinance 2022-22, is this what we're working on?
It is.
It is. This is it.
This is it. We've amended it, one item.
How come my amendment's not in here? You said the amendment I presented, it was already on there.
So you wanted item 3 in there, and item 3 is in there. Am I correct?
I took item 3 off of this list here.
Oh, so that's, so you're looking at the existing.
I'm looking at the existing.
Okay.
I want to put it back.
Okay, so this is what we're doing. We're removing the whole existing. We're
Do what?
deleting everything that's existing for the city attorney and changing it out with something totally new.
You're replacing it with this, so if you want something that's in the old
I
to
want
apply
this
to this,
put
you
back
need to.
in there, in here.
Let me see what that is. I don't have.
It's about being convicted as a felony.
This, on page 15.
Thank you, okay.
Am I right, John?
Okay.
I think
Okay.
it's
I totally misunderstood you, Alderman Waters.
I thought you did.
So,
Are we
so
on the
if,
same?
if y'all look on page 15, boy, that would really restrict us. So Alderman Waters is moving that we add item 3 in the current code into the ordinance that we are considering right now. So let me read what we have here. So that would be a second. May not have ever been convicted of a felony or any offense involving the abuse of intoxicants or controlled substances. If the city attorney is convicted of such an offense and the conviction is appealed, the city attorney shall be suspended pending the appeal, provided, however, that this provision does not apply to appeals from courts of inferior jurisdiction, which automatically result in a new trial. So
Right.
Alderman Waters makes that motion. Alderman Petrelli
Let me
seconds
be
it.
That's something, before you vote, come on.
Okay.
I amended to put it under number 5.
Under number 5. Okay.
Of the current, of the new one, okay?
Should we make it number 6?
Yeah, you would.
Let's make it number 6. Okay.
It would go really in the qualifications section better,
okay.
Mayor. It should be better if it was in 1301 number,
D?
I guess it would be D now, because we've added a C.
Okay.
And if I could just address this paragraph that we're talking about.
Hold on one second. So we have a second from Alderman Petrelli. Am I correct?
Yes.
Okay. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea, and the history behind it is, we passed that because of the city judge position, because of some things that had happened, and then they said, well, if it applies to the city judge, why shouldn't it apply to the city attorney? And that's how that got in there. And I think it's a good amendment, Mr. Waters.
We're not all good boys, are we?
Some better than others.
Did I make it, did I mess up when I started?
I just didn't understand.
We didn't
it.
know what you meant. No.
My only question is,
Jason.
would you want to put a time restriction on there?
Sir?
Would you want to put a time restriction on there? Is it forever?
Yeah, this is forever.
Okay. Okay.
Since 1991, it's forever.
Okay. Okay. Any other discussion on that item? Okay. Any other clarifications? I'm sorry, I misunderstood understood you, Alderman Waters. Okay. All those in favor of this amendment, please signify by pressing the green button. Those opposed, press the red one.
I can sleep better tonight.
Okay. That passes unanimously. Thank y'all. Now we're back on the main motion. We've amended it twice. We have under section 1(1-301), we've added 2 qualifications. The first one is that not represent any other city or, any other government
Governmental
entity in Sumner County. The second takes item 3 from the current code, involving conviction of offenses involving alcohol
And drugs.
and drugs. Thank you. Any other discussion? All those in favor of passing ordinance 2022-22 on first reading, please press your green button. Those opposed, press the red one. That passes unanimously. Thank you all. Now we're next on the agenda is Resolution 2022-40. This is a resolution ratifying the Parks Department's Special Event Application Handbook approved earlier by the Parks Board. Alderman Brown. We have a motion. And a motion from Alderman Brown, a second from Alderman Cunningham. We have an amendment that's going to be proposed. Andy, can you come up and help us a little bit? Alderman Brown, are you aware of the amendment? Do you want to make it? But he doesn't get to make an amendment. Somebody actually has to make the motion. Here we go. Excuse me, Andy.
Make the amendment, and I will let Director Gilly explain it.
There we go. Okay. Director Gilly.
Yes, sir. If you look on page, let's see here. It's in 2 places in your packet that the mayor had suggested an amendment that is a good one. On page 26, all the changes in the handbook are highlighted, but page 26 was not in the original general committee form, so this is new since it was at general 2 weeks ago. The bottom bullet under additional items, explain this kind of similar to the way the planning department kind of sometimes negotiates with developers. We kind of, when we have events, are able to negotiate donations they might make back to park improvements or local organizations, and this one kind of clarifies that. It adds that a donation or fee to the parks or local nonprofit organization that is either recognized by the city's nonprofit committee currently using the parks for play or has a physical address in Hendersonville. And then that same amendment is noted on page 29 of your packet under please respond to the following. You'll see it highlighted there also. So I can't make a motion, but
So moved.
Thank you, Alderman Brown. Do we have a second? Okay. So the motion is to adopt the language that is in highlighted. Is that the best way to put that?
I think so, yes.
Okay, that was part of your packet. Any discussion on that? All those in favor of the motion to amend, please press the green button. Those opposed, press the red one. We're missing Lori. Okay, so that passes 11-0, one person not voting. Let's go back to the main motion. Any discussion? All those in favor of resolution 2020-40 as amended, please press your green button. Those opposed, press the red one. That passes 11-0. Thank you, Andy. Thank you, Alderman Brown. Next, we're on ordinance 2022-23. This is something that was added to your packet. Robert handed it out earlier. This is an ordinance appropriating funds for the city's traffic light synchronization project. We have a motion from Alderman Waters, a second from Alderman Robertson. Any discussion? All those in favor of approving ordinance 2022-23 on first reading, please signify by hitting the green button. Those opposed, press the red one. That passes 11-0. Now we're on ordinance 2022-24. This is something else that was added to the agenda. This is an ordinance appropriating funds for the Sanders Ferry Walking Trail. We have a motion from Alderman Waters and a second from Alderman Peterson. Any discussion? All those in favor of ordinance 2022-24 on first reading, please press your green button. Those opposed, press the red one. Tell me to slow down if I need to. That passes 11-0. Now we're on to other agenda items. We've completed the ordinance and resolutions. We have a vote on the appointment of reappointment of Dale Dool to the Municipal Board of Zoning Appeals. We have a motion from Alderman Waters and a second from Alderman Dixon. All those in favor, please press the green button. Those opposed, press the red one. That passes 11-0. Now we're on the appointment of Colin Zimmerman to the Deer Herd Monitoring and Control Committee. We have a motion from Alderman Dixon, a second from Alderman Peterson. Any discussion? All those in favor of appointing Colin Zimmerman to the Deer Herd Monitoring and Control Committee, please press your green button. Those opposed, press the red one. That passes 11-0. Now we're on to brief committee reports. Chairman Cunningham, Finance Committee.
Thank you, Mayor. We met tonight. All members were present. We had several ordinances, and two of the several are on our agenda tonight. Ordinance 2022-23, an ordinance appropriating funds for the city's traffic light synchronization project, was recommended unanimously. Ordinance 2022-24, an ordinance appropriating funds for the Sanders Ferry Walking Trail, was also recommended unanimously. Resolution 2022-20-44, a resolution authorizing the city to participate in a matching grant program to protect and conserve city assets, was recommended unanimously. Under other agenda items, we had our sales tax analysis report, and we're still, our sales tax revenue is still tracking very well. Year over year, year to date for the first 2 months of the year, we're up by $373,155, or an increase of 12.25%. So we're on pace to do well. So far, so good. So that was really good news. Our hotel motel tax was down just a bit this month, but we still year to date are seeing an increase. Last month it was 40,000. Last year was 39 at this time last year, and we're down a little bit this past month by about $4,000. And we also discussed other items, which is our reserve policy and how we were going to be proactive with our funds. And I'm going to have Jesse elaborate on that as part of his report tonight. And that is the end of my report, Mayor. Thank you.
Chairman Cunningham, thank you. Chairman Skidmore.
Yes,
Public Works.
thank you very much, Mayor. We had a rather lengthy agenda tonight on Public Works. We had to approve about 10 ordinances. So what I'm gonna do is give you all the highlights, due to time constraints with us tonight. We're doing really good at pushing everything through tonight. The main thing that I do wanna tell you is, what you all have voted for, which is a concern of us all, is the appropriating of funds for the city traffic light project. It was 20% the match, and we've got a sign that we already have a signed contract on that ordinance. So, I'm really glad about that. The other 10 is stuff that's coming back to you all in about 2 weeks that we'll talk about then. Because if I started on all these, it would take me probably about 30 minutes to go through, and I certainly don't want to waste your time when I can waste your time in 2 weeks about it. One of the other thing is, in talking, I meant to talk about this, about the light synchronization update. We have a pre-construction conference scheduled for October 5th. For that, so we're real excited about that. And then also on the Saunders Ferry Greenway update, we've got a notice to proceed that meets here on October 3rd with our construction engineer. So we are really excited about that. And then one other thing, the last thing I'll talk about tonight, and then we'll have, an opportunity to speak about all these other ordinances. All the month of November, we passed a resolution authorizing the Kristen Wagle Photography to have pictures with Santa. And it's going to start on the 1st of November, the whole month of November. And so I encourage you all to go out to do that. And that's going to be at the house at Heritage Park. So I encourage you, if you want to talk to Santa, to go speak to him. I'm getting my list up right now to go speak to him. So it's going to take me about a month at least to get it done. So
Whole naughty and nice thing.
all right. I'm going to do everything I can. But again, that is in the month of November. She'll be there at Heritage Park at the house there. For all the children, seriously, that want to speak to Santa, go there and hopefully he'll grant your wishes. Thank you. It's a fundraiser, yes. Yes, it is. The reason why also that Santa wants to donate whatever monies that they get there to Mary's Magical Place. And so that's another reason why you should go there, to get your picture taken with Santa. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Chairman Skidmore. Our Chief of Operations report, Jesse.
Thank you, Mayor. I know there's a couple requirements added for the city attorney tonight, but I believe maybe we don't have any pending litigation against the city right now. Is that correct, Mr. Bradley?
After this order gets approved that we approved tonight, that's pretty much it. Yes.
Well, he's going to be on Easy Street when he comes in here for a while. Thank you for your work on that, Mr. Bradley. The recruitment for the city attorney is still ongoing. We just reposted it for another 2 weeks, so please, if you know anyone, please put the word out on city attorney. In your packets, I included a hard copy of the Westlake plan. This is something that planning has been working on. We will hold public workshops to go through the plan, but just please familiarize yourself with it. It's a great opportunity to look at West Main and the economic development that can happen on the west side of town. So there's a lot of good things in here. I'm sure it will go through a few iterations as we fine tune it, but it's a really good starting point to think about west end of town.
Jesse, could you mention the date we're going to have a public meeting on that?
I think it's October 18th. I can send an email out to everyone, but off the top of my head, I think it's at Gene Brown Elementary.
It is. I figure since, yes, it's 5 p.m. at Gene Brown Elementary. Sorry.
Is it
Yeah,
October 18th?
I asked you a question that I answered myself. So.
And then we will have PowerPoints there. Keith and the consultant will have a presentation that's prepared. We did talk about some financial planning at the Finance Committee this evening. So at Ms. Cunningham's request, I will briefly go over some of the discussion items. I've just, in talking with the Finance Committee and just kind of looking at the uncertainty of the future, put together some potential scenarios if revenues were to stay constant and expenses were to increase, what would that look like for the city's operating budget? And so we ran a 2-year scenario and a 3-year scenario and just said, hey, if revenues stay flat and expenses go up 3.5%, year over year, what would that look like and what would that do to our operating budget? And if that happens, how can we be prepared and how can we be proactive to have some money set aside to weather a storm that we'd have like that, if that's in the, talking about maybe putting some aside for public safety so we can assure that the level of service for public safety remains if we have natural disasters. If we want to put some money aside for extraordinary building or new construction that were to happen. If we were to put money aside for capital projects, so projects like Exit 8, and some of these bigger Walton Ferry realignment projects, we could have some money set aside. So we are going to come forward with a workshop, going to kind of have some priorities and some scenarios set up where BOMA can really look at, maybe a couple outlooks for the future in terms of the revenue we will continue to receive compared to the expenses, and then maybe some options to be proactive to weather an economic downturn. Anything else you'd like me to touch on? Yeah, so we'll be putting a workshop out. Finance Committee asked me to put a workshop out, so I'm sure I'll get together with the mayor in the next couple of weeks, and we'll have a date for a workshop, and then we'll just kind of work through trying to be proactive and do some financial planning for the city.
Thank you, Jason.
Yep, that concludes my report. Thank you.
Appreciate that. Any questions? We got the fun stuff coming up. Next, you have my report in your packet, and then we have deer discussion. Without objection, we're going to suspend the rules and hear from Oliver Berry, who's the chairman of our Deer Herd Monitoring and Control Committee. So we need you to come up here, please, Oliver. Why don't you lead us off?
I see y'all have saved the most stimulating conversation for last on the agenda. The committee meets periodically about once a quarter. I have to say that our Deer Board meetings are pretty lively. We have people who are angry at the Deer Board committee for different things that we're doing or not doing to solve the deer problem in Hendersonville. And I have to point out at the beginning of each meeting that none of us are paid, that we're volunteer citizens, and please don't shoot us before the meeting is over. Anger because they have hit a deer, or anger because deer have chewed their plants, their daylilies or their roses or something, and they're angry with the city and they want the city to do something about it. If not get rid of the deer, then pay them for the loss of their daylilies. In our meetings and in our goals, we have two big goals, and the first goal is public education. We want to help the public in Hendersonville to understand the cost and the expense of feeding the deer and the injury that it causes to the deer by feeding them. We've had people coming to the meetings to complain about their neighbors feeding the deer, and I say, well, you should turn them in to the police. Oh, no, I don't want to turn them in. And so that's usually the thing. But we need to educate the public more about not feeding the deer, and if we stop that, I think that would go a long way towards eliminating a lot of the deer. Plant deer repellent plants, use deer repellent on our yards, and especially don't feed them, and enforce that rule. Enforcement is something that the police department has not been involved in, the citizens of Hendersonville have not been involved in, because education is lacking. We don't realize that it hurts the deer to actually feed them. And so I had a citizen actually call me and say, I complained to the police about a lady she lived on Indian Lake Road, and her deer feeding was exactly the way it was described in the ordinance. She laid the food on a platter, and the deer came and ate it, and the police dispatcher said, oh, we don't have a deer feeding ordinance in Hendersonville. So I've had a discussion with the police department about that, and they are ready to help us enforce the rules again. And again, we need more education of the public on that matter to stop the feeding. Also, we need education about this time of year. The rut is starting to occur, and you can see deer already moving around. Before sunrise, you can see them a lot, and just after sunset, the most dangerous time that they can be crossing the street is when they're doing it. And this time of year, they're thinking about love and not about traffic, so we really have to be cautious as we drive through the streets of Hendersonville. I write a letter to the Hendersonville Standard every year, an article that they happily publish for us. And Jamie and I have been, Mayor Clary and I have done a couple of public service announcements that we've posted on the city website. We probably need to do that again here in the near future to prepare for the deer rut. Also, there's been discussion every year about a flyover survey. Should we do that again? Last year, I talked with the chief biologist with TWRA, and he recommended that it probably wouldn't do much good to do a flyover survey, and he feels that the deer population isn't at a critical level where we could ask the USDA to come in and do a deer hunt for us. I think that probably it would be a good idea to do it this year, if not to raise awareness that we are overcrowded with deer, but to point out to the public that we're doing something. And I think that would be a good thing to show the public that we are doing something. So that would be a recommendation I would make, and I think that we have the funds in a previous budget to pay for it. It's about $5,000. Is that about right? Anybody remember?
I want to say it was like 4,800. We would probably have to amend our budget, but they wouldn't do the flyover until winter, am I correct?
And that would come in the wintertime when the leaves are off the trees, yes.
Okay.
That would be the most easily, time to see them most easily, and it would be the most profitable time to see more deer.
Okay.
The last drive-through survey that was done told us that we didn't have any deer at all. They saw maybe 7 deer in the city of Hendersonville on that particular day. And I guess the guy that was driving around had a loud muffler or something and scared them all into the woods. But a flyover survey, again, would go a long way towards improving our public perception of the city doing something in that regard.
So I need you to hang out here for just a second, Oliver, because I'm sure we're going to want your thoughts on this. I have an email, and this has happened occasionally. I have an email from somebody who is a game warden, works for TWRA. He has offered to bow hunt on city property close to Durham Farms. He's also offered to use firearms. I sent that request to our city attorney. John, you want to explain what your response was?
Well, you know, we've got rules against discharging firearms in the city, and we've got rules against using projectiles, which an arrow certainly would be. But it doesn't specifically mention bows and arrows. It looks, you know, we could argue that maybe they're talking about slingshots and bottle rockets and things like that. It's what it appears to me it is. It doesn't really appear to apply to bow and arrows. But what I told the mayor was I feel like that if we're going to allow something like that, that the board needs to vote to do that. The board needs to vote specifically to give someone that permission, and we get paperwork from them where they agree to indemnify us and hold us harmless from any liability, everything they do, because there's obviously some issues involved here. And also I'd want to get the blessing of our insurance carrier if we could, just to let them know what's going on. And Mr. Waters can certainly relate to that, being an insurance man himself.
On that point, the TWRA will issue a depredation permit to any homeowner who can show TWRA that deer are destroying their property, and that's not a hard thing to do. And they'll give you a permit, and they let you figure out the way to do it. So hiring that game warden would be a great way to solve that. There have been depredation permits issued in the city several times in the past, and they've harvested 10, 15, 20 deer at a time doing that. And it's an effective way to get them off of your property for about a year until your neighbors start feeding them again, and then they come back.
Go ahead, John.
Yeah, and with that permit he's talking about, that's state law, and so that trumps our city ordinances.
Yes.
If they do that, this board wouldn't have to do anything for that. Okay, it's just that if we want them to give specific permission on city property, that's where I would suggest that the board come in. But that other would not require board approval.
That's right. And my understanding is they can discharge firearms shooting the deer, the homeowner would be liable for any damage caused by a projectile or injury. So that would be a definite way. And every time someone comes to our meeting, we definitely point out to them that they can get a depredation permit themselves, and maybe the deer aren't that bad is some of the response.
But anybody who hunts understands that they are responsible for what they hit and everything in its path. So
Their
let's be
bullet or
clear.
their arrow, that's right.
Yeah. Okay. Alderman Dixon.
Yeah, I just have a couple questions and on that topic. Do we really want people firing a gun in neighborhoods, right? I mean, do we really
Oh,
want
I'm
that?
sorry. This is the vacant property,
Okay.
the vacant parkland
Okay.
that we have across the creek.
That
40
doesn't help us in the peninsulas, though.
So,
And that's where we're heavily populated with them. It's obvious that we've seen a growth in the herds, right? It's obvious. And I think I've heard Oliver say this before, correct me if I'm wrong, not feeding them will help that growth to slow down, but it still won't help to thin the herd, right?
If they run out of food, they're going to go somewhere else to get it. It's as simple as that. So if we enforce the deer feeding ordinance, then we're not going to get rid of all the deer. And who wants to get rid of all the deer? We just want them to be reasonable numbers. And that would go a long way towards doing that. It will work. It has worked in other cities in the past. Now that we have the ordinance, let's enforce it and see. Let's try it and see if it doesn't work.
Absolutely. I agree with you. And, a lot of the complaints I get are related to neighbors feeding the deer. I get a lot of people yelling at me too because there's so many deer, but most of them are, hey, my neighbor feeds, can you call the police? And I have called the police and I've done it. I have to. I've gone by, I saw the kiddie pool with the food in it. They feed them dog food. It's like candy to them. It's just not fair to
And
that
that's a good
wild
point.
animal.
Is
It's just not
feeding
fair.
the deer good for them? Should you give your child ice cream every 5 minutes? Same question.
Right.
Same answer. No, it's not good for them.
Right.
Alderman Dixon, thank you. Alderman Brown.
Thanks, Mayor. Oliver, I'm probably the reason you're here tonight, but I appreciate you coming in.
Yep. And you made some very excellent points about damage to automobiles caused by deer.
Yeah, it's, I've been with you with this for a while. I served on your committee a bit. I think I'm the guy, if you go back and look at the feeding ordinance, I was the guy that sponsored it. And I still believe in it, and mine's more biological than anything else. It's just unhealthy for the deer. I mean, they're used to eating green. They don't need to eat yellow. They don't need to eat purina, but it is difficult to turn your neighbor in because they're your neighbor. I'm like you, I've had some people be nice to me and I've had some people holler at me about deer. And I just tell them, call Oliver. And they do that, obviously.
And they yell at me often, yes.
But, whether we feed the deer or we don't feed the deer, and I agree, we need to enforce our ordinance the best we can. And I told you that, I've actually stopped and talked to a couple of those people that have had pans in their front yard with 10 deer standing around them. They didn't really like the conversation, but actually one of them, when I got done, said, I just didn't realize it was bad for the deer. So, and they either moved it to the backyard or they quit feeding them because it's not there anymore. But whether we feed or we don't feed, we have lots of deer. And that's not going to stop the breeding of deer. It's going to be a big rut. Last month, we picked up 23 deer, I believe. This time last year, in the month of August, we picked up 8 deer. So the rut, I said this 2 weeks ago, the amount of deer is going to double from what we had. It's already doubled. So we've got to figure out something to do other than just not feed the deer and educate. I believe in all that, and I think you know that. The biologist who said we didn't have a problem, if you give him my number and have him call me, I'll gladly take him on a tour and show him almost where every single deer on Indian Lake Peninsula live. And when I'm done showing him, I think he'll probably say, we might have a problem, especially on the peninsulas.
Yeah.
You get farther up where we're not on peninsulas, there's still deer, but it's not near as concentrated. So,
You know, to address that traffic problem, I think we might need some better street lighting in some areas back in there where the deer congregate.
it would help, because there's
Especially since
spots
it's
that
dark when they're
it's very
coming out.
dim. I agree. It's very dim, and I'm running with my brights on at night till somebody comes to me, and they've usually got their brights on. So I know they live back there. They're looking for deer. But whatever it takes to get the survey done, you know, I'm not gonna be here very much longer, but I'll certainly support that, either up here or out there as a citizen. I think that's got to be done. It's got to be not just a drive-by, sit at a stop sign and look, because there is times you don't see them. They're bedded down in little spots. But I think we owe that to the citizens. You know, I like deer too. We've got twins in my backyard. One of them's got socks on. We call him Socks, white that tore up. So, but he's going to get hit, or his sister's going to get hit. So, I appreciate the work you guys are doing. That committee is, I don't want to say thankless, but it can be very well thankless. You know.
Thankless is a good word.
It very well can be. But I'll support you getting that done. I don't know if you have looked into possibly a drone doing it.
Yeah,
Drones can do it without the leaves being off. So,
I would do it in the wintertime with the leaves off. I think that's going to be the best way to do it. And USDA is who does it, and they may have a drone system set up by now.
I would bet you they do.
Rachel made that point, and that's probably a good idea to ask them if they can do it with a drone, and if that would cost us less money to do.
But I would agree with you on doing the article and everything we can now, and just say, folks, rut's starting. They're sparring in my yard already. In another month, they'll be pretty well full blown, and they'll be running across the road paying no attention. They're walking across the road paying no attention now. They'll be running across the road paying. Thank you for being here.
Alderman Brown, thank you. Alderman Waters.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm just glad I live on the poor side of the track. We don't have deer. I'm the only one here that don't have deer, right? Me and John. Now, let's talk about squirrels.
We'll
Let's
have
talk
to have
about
a different
rabbits.
committee for that.
Really?
Pardon me?
Go ahead.
I don't have squirrels.
You got a committee on squirrels and rabbits?
We'll need a different committee. We got to get the skunks out of the way first, and
All right, on a serious note, I cannot believe people would feed a next door deer next door, knowing they got to know that the neighbor don't want them. I don't understand that. I listened to Alderman Brown at the General Committee several weeks ago. It broke my heart. He said, I think 18, 20 deer in his yard. I haven't seen that many in 2 years.
Time for another video. So time for another video, Oliver.
You don't get out much.
I don't get out much. You're right.
Alderman Waters, I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you, Mayor. I don't want to go home yet.
Alderman Robertson.
Yeah, quickly. Tonight, we approved a new member for the Deer Committee, I think from Ward 1. At our next meeting, we're providing another new member to the Deer Committee from Ward 6. So, Oliver, when's the next time you're going to have a Deer Committee
we don't have
meeting?
one scheduled yet, but we'll schedule it pretty soon. We just had one 3 weeks ago.
Yeah. We're, I think these new members can add a lot to the committee. And again, I'm looking for a range of options. You know, what can the city do?
Actually, attendance has been kind of a problem of Deer Committee members, so that would be welcome to have some people that show up and help us to have a quorum.
Okay. That's all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Alderman Robertson. Alderman Collins.
Ward 5, obviously, and parts of the ward have a more significant problem. Governor's Point, Lake Club Estates, and the further out from the peninsula, the less of a problem, but I get a call about deer. It is somewhat seasonal, probably the rutting season. I didn't even realize that. but, you know, a couple a month where there's an issue with a dead deer usually. And, that problem that's on the peninsulas, it's coming. If you don't have it yet, you will, unless we do something about it. And I would really like to ask staff to start investigating the different options that we might have for getting a survey. I do not want to pay for a survey that tells us we have 83 deer. I will be very upset if that happens, because I think we all know that 2018 driving survey was a total waste and really kind of set us back in our efforts. So I want to make sure that whatever we do, we get good data. And I'd like to get options on that sooner than later so that we can go ahead and start moving forward with some solutions, because this rutting season is, when all these little ones come, it's going to be, they're having twins and triplets. And I don't know if you guys have noticed this, but everybody is an expert on deer. Everybody knows all about them. And somebody told me that once they have twins or once they have triplets, they always do. I have no idea if that's true. But if it is, we're in a bad place, because we're not killing, we're not, I think the only way they die is we hit them with our cars. They don't have predators except for Hondas. And so, I mean, if they're having twins and triplets every year, they're going to outnumber us.
Alderman Collins, I'll work on figuring out where we need to come up with the money to do that. And I'll
And what the types of studies that are accurate.
Okay. You make a good point about the reporting dead deer. People don't know where to call, and they get frustrated about that. And I think we have, when they call City Hall now, they're directed directly to Public Works, if I'm not mistaken. And that's something that our committee has helped with.
Yeah, that's what needs to
Pick
happen.
those up. And one other very important point: if you vote to kill the deer, half of your ward is going to desert you. If you vote to feed the deer, the other half of your ward is going to desert you. So no matter where you vote, you're going to be right in the middle of half of your citizens, and
Doing the right thing
might get voted
isn't
out.
always popular or easy.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for bringing that up, and now I want to ask y'all how y'all feel about allowing somebody to hunt. Allowing somebody to hunt. We own property across the creek from Durham Farms. We also control Sanders Ferry Park, and we own Heritage Park. How do y'all feel about me asking our insurance carrier about allowing somebody to bow hunt on those properties? I am uncomfortable with
How many people are going to
firearms.
want to do that? I mean, are we going to have like a waiting list? I don't know.
So we have at least one person. I've had other inquiries from other people, but this person, he's a ranger for TWRA.
Okay.
He knows his stuff. Alderman Robertson.
Yeah. I just got an email from someone that lives in Durham Farms. He was a game warden in Utah, and he's bow hunted and crossbow hunted for 40 years, and he's looking for areas to hunt. So
Okay.
there are some people out there that would, I think, hunt.
The qualifications for me to allow somebody to do that are going to be very high.
What about the liability exposure?
Well, that's why we talked to our attorney. So, Alderman Waters, you want to say that again?
No, I just asked a question. The liability, the city, we shouldn't afford the liability for Joe to go out here and shoot deer. I mean, we can't do that.
I'd ask her, before I allow anybody to do that, I'll come back here, but I think the question I need to answer is, how does our insurance carrier feel about that? I completely agree with you, Alderman Waters. So, okay. Alderman Brown.
Quickly, I agree with you, Mayor. I don't feel real comfortable with it, simply for the fact that they would have to have high qualifications and proven over years and years and years that they can do the job with a bow. I can also tell you, and you'll remember this because this was in your first term, that on Indian Lake Peninsula, we had a bolt that was just recently removed from a buck's head, but there was about 3 years ago, we had a bolt go through a picture window of someone and let one fly. We also had We had a doe that was shot up on Shiloh Ridge that ran down Monitor and onto Jefferson and died or laid in a lady's yard until the person who shot the deer came to finish the doe off and then dragged the deer up the street. And there was 3 or 4 people on Jefferson that, older folks that did not have a good day that day, seeing that. So not everybody out there, including a ranger or myself who hunted deer for over 40 years, don't miss once in a while. So.
And if they hit with a bow, it is not as effective as
It's not, you've got a small target area, you've got a small kill area, and you've got to be on the money with it. So, I don't know. Check their insurance carrier and see what they say, but I bet I can give you their answer.
Okay. Alderman Collins, do you have something?
I was just thinking, it's not the solution.
Oh, it's not the whole solution by any means.
So I'm not
Yeah.
sure. Well, check with the insurance.
Yeah.
and-
Okay. Anything else in this discussion? Alderman Waters, you said you didn't want to go home. Anything else? There we go. A motion to adjourn from Alderman Waters, a second from Alderman Dixon. All those in favor of adjourning, please press your green button. Those opposed, press the red one.
Where you live? You see them very often.
Yeah, I see. I always see them 8 or 10 at a time. Hold on, y'all. I need you to press the green button, but not often.
This out here, they're every day.
There we go. We're adjourned. Thank you.